Before gaining iconic status as a cigar-chomping British statesman and wartime leader, the young Winston Churchill had an adventurous military career, seeing active service on the fringes of the Empire as well as escaping from an enemy prison camp. Join me as we look at the life, campaigns and most importantly the medals of a young Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill entered Sandhurst Military Academy in 1893 at the age of 18. He was 5'6". After undergoing the standard 18-month course at the time, Churchill was posted to the 4th Hussars in early 1895 as a second lieutenant. After a short stint as an observer in Cuba where he allegedly gained the habit for cigars, Churchill departed for India along with his regiment in September 1896. Since the Indian Rebellion of 1857, Britain kept a standing army of 65,000 European, alongside 140,000 Indian troops garrisoned across the country. Stationed in Bangalore, Churchill found garrison life boring, stating it was stupid, dull and uninteresting. Outside of campaigning, British and Indian troops lived in cantonments, a permanent residential area where military personnel were housed. Cantonments were close to but separate from civilian cities. Every cantonment, also known as a station, included buildings such as treasuries or arsenals that were guarded by troops day and night. Barrack blocks, known as bungalows, were often 2 or 3 stories high, but accommodation was shared and could be uncomfortable. These buildings were cooled by a punkah-wallah, who pulled on flapping ceiling curtains for up to 16 hours a day during the hot summer months. A maidan or parade ground was central to the cantonment, and almost all stations had an Anglican church and a hospital or medical centre. The routine of cantonment life had its own rhythm. Men rose early, usually at 5:30 a.m, known as gunfire, often woken by barracks servants offering tea or a daily face shave. After drill, breakfast was eaten and a routine of further drills or other duties began. In contrast to army placements outside of India, all fatigues, cooking, sweeping and water duties were done by native servants. Rations were good, including a pound of meat a day. Around the end of March every year, a large number of British soldiers would be marched up to the hill stations away from the boiling climate of the plains in order to preserve the health of the troops over the summer period. To relieve the boredom, soldiers often participated in sports or other activities. Cavalry officers would participate in pig sticking or polo. However, the peace of this tranquil, if dull garrison life would soon be shattered across India. In the summer of 1897, unrest and rebellion spread across the entire northwest frontier. This would be a chance for the restless Churchill, who, after pulling a few strings, managed to obtain a secondment as a correspondent and observer and finally see action. Medal number 1, the India General Service Medal or IGS 95, formerly called the India Medal. The uprising was due to a variety of factors, but essentially the result of smouldering resentment against the British, coupled with a charismatic religious cleric, Sadullah, who incited an uprising against the British. Sadullah was known to the British as the Mad Fakir. This galvanised several Pathan tribes to rise up against the British. Caught off their guard, on a dark day for the British Army and a personal shock for Queen Victoria, 2 forts on the Khyber Pass were captured by Pathan tribesmen, Landi Kotal and Ali Masjid. British forts scattered across the frontier also came under attack, with sieges being conducted at Malakand Fort in Malakand Province and also Shabkara Fort in Mohmand. As a result, over 36,000 British and Indian troops were mustered to confront the tribesmen, bring peace to the region and restore prestige to the British Empire. These troops were organised and divided into 4 field forces: the Mohmand, Malakand, Tirar and Tochi field forces. Each was, over a 10-month period, to restore order to various parts of the frontier. The Malakand field force was composed of over 5,000 troops. Indian troops were armed with Martini Henry rifles, and the British, always one generation ahead in weapons technology since the Indian Rebellion, were armed with the new Lee Metford bolt-action magazine rifle since 1894. As a young cavalry lieutenant and aspiring war correspondent for the Daily Telegraph, Churchill, aged 22, joined the Malakand field force under the command of Sir Bindon Blood to cover the British campaign against the tribesmen. Blood was a legendary character and led a distinguished military career. Churchill would later dedicate his first book to him. Churchill's dispatches from the front would earn him recognition and would later launch his career as both a writer and a politician. Accompanying the daily reconnaissance patrols, he initially spent most of his time alongside the 11th Bengal Lancers. Later he managed to transfer across to the 2nd Brigade, who were involved in fighting in the Mohand Valley. The 2nd Brigade's mission was to destroy the 2 villages in the valley that were seen as a support base of Pathan fighters. 1,000 strong, the British were divided into 3 columns to conduct an effective sweep of the valley. Accompanying the 35th Sikh Infantry Regiment, Churchill says, "Like most young fools, I was looking for trouble, and only hoped that something exciting would happen. It did." Advancing outside the cover of their artillery, the 35th Sikhs were attacked by the Pathans, who had concealed themselves in the nearby rocky hills. Churchill's group received heavy fire from the tribesmen, who killed 2 men, including a fellow officer, and wounded 3 others. Churchill states, "One man was shot through the breast and pouring with blood. Another lay on his back, kicking and twisting. The British officer was spinning around just behind me, his face a mass of blood, his right eye cut out." Yes, it was certainly an adventure. Under fire, they retreated, trying to leave no man behind. Churchill helped save the life of a wounded Sikh soldier. As Churchill observed, "It is a point of honour on the Indian frontier not to leave a wounded man behind. Death by inches and hideous mutilation are the invariable measure meted out to all who fall in battle at the hands of the Pashtun tribesmen." Advancing out of the covering positions, the group finally managed to extract themselves and ultimately complete the mission after several more skirmishes. Over the weeks, Churchill witnessed several more skirmishes and engagements as the campaign rolled on. Overall, Churchill claimed to his mother that he had come under fire 10 times. Pathan tribesmen fought on foot and were expert guerrilla fighters. Many fought with swords and Khyber knives. Tom-tom drums were used to psych themselves up before attacks. Flags representing villages, clans and tribes were carried in battle as rallying points. Churchill writes of the Pathans, or as they are known in modern parlance, the Pashtun people, "Their swordsmanship, neglecting guards, concerns itself only with cuts, and careless of what injury they may receive, they devote themselves to the destruction of their opponents." 11 Victoria Crosses were issued for this campaign in total, with peace finally being restored in April 1898. The medal itself? Issued between 1895 and 1902, this medal replaced the India General Service Medal of 1854, awarded for similar campaigns in India and the surrounding areas over the last 4 decades. Made in silver, 7 clasps in total were issued, 4 for this campaign, including Malakand, Punjab Frontier, Tirah and Samana. The Samana clasp is notable as, along with other regiments, this clasp was issued to the defenders of Saragari, which is one of the most famous last stands made during this period. 22 men of the 36 Sikhs fought to the last man at Fort Gulistan. Churchill received the Punjab Frontier clasp, as he was not part of the defenders of Malakand or the original relief force, who were only entitled to it. The Tirah field force was so large and witnessed so much fighting that it was given its own clasp. The obverse portrays an ageing Queen Victoria, and the reverse a British and Indian soldier supporting a standard. Edward VII appears for the later Waziristan 1901 to 1902 clasp. The ribbon is crimson with 2 dark green stripes. As an interesting aside, British intelligence reports at the time stated alarm with the increasing use of modern firearms by the Pathan tribesmen across the northwest frontier, increasing significantly in the 1890s. In addition to the Pathans successfully copying modern replica rifles, another cause of this was soon found out. A flourishing covert weapons trafficking network was operating between Europe, the Persian Gulf and the northwest frontier. Firearms were being smuggled on European ships to ports in Bushehr in Iran and Muscat in Oman, and then onwardly smuggled overland or onto the Indian coastline. When discovered, the Royal Navy and the government of Oman attempted to intercept this trade, but many weapons got through and it took 10 years to successfully stamp out. This Royal Naval operation cost the taxpayer £100,000 a year. Troops were even sent to intercept smuggling caravans in Baluchistan. Although stopping the trade was successful in Oman, it still occurred through Persia. It was estimated in 1909-1910 alone that over 16,500 rifles were smuggled, and in that period alone between 80,000 and 150,000 tribesmen were armed with modern rifles. In 1906, it was estimated that at least 4 European nations were supplying arms in this trade. An example being hidden rifles found amongst loaf sugar goods originating from Hamburg. A clasp, Persian Gulf 1909 to 1914, was issued to the Navy General Service Medal in recognition of operations to try and stop this. Ironically, in 1915, a German U-boat sunk a ship that was transporting a consignment of these medals to be distributed in the region. After being deployed, Churchill returned to his unit in southern India and later wrote a book, The Story of the Malakand Field Force. Number 2. The Queen's Sudan Medal. This medal was issued for the reconquest of the Sudan. The reconquest of the Sudan, 1896 to 1899, was a military campaign led by the Anglo-Egyptian forces under General Horatio Herbert Kitchener. The campaign aimed to reclaim Sudanese territory lost to the Mahdist forces during the Mahdist War of 1881 to 1899. This land was previously claimed by Egypt with the support of the British. Mahdist forces in the Sudan were led by Khalifa Abdullahi ibn Muhammad, successor to the Mahdi, Muhammad Ahmed. Using his family connections, Churchill once again managed to wangle a temporary deployment serving as a war correspondent attached to the 21st Lancers. In this function, Churchill was involved in the Battle of Omdurman and what was arguably considered the last famous charge of British cavalry. Reinvading the Sudan, Anglo-Egyptian forces advanced towards Khartoum, the capital. When approaching the capital, they were finally confronted by the Sudanese Mahdist army at Omdurman. After camping overnight near the British forces who had positioned themselves against the Nile, the Mahdist army decided to launch a frontal assault against British and Egyptian forces. At dawn, thousands of dervish warriors charged across open ground towards the British and Egyptian positions in a brave but ultimately near suicidal attack. Dervish losses were particularly heavy in the attack against the 2 British brigades, armed with magazine Lee Metford rifles and supported by field artillery, Maxims and the gunboats. The dervish attack here came to a halt 800 yards from the British positions, with the dervishes lying down in the sand and, where armed with rifles, returning fire. The dervish attack against the Egyptian battalions managed to get within 300 yards of the firing line. The Mahdists pulled back, and Kitchener, keen to find out if they were retreating, sent the cavalry out to conduct reconnaissance. This included Churchill and the 21st Lancers. Sighting a force of dervishes much larger than they thought, the 21st Lancers decided to charge at them. Tasked with only reconnaissance duties, it is unclear why the leader, Captain Grenfell, decided on a cavalry charge as he was killed. But the regiment had previously been taunted for its lack of battle honours and inexperience compared to the other British and Indian regiments in the army. The 21st were charging into a trap. Concealed in a hollow were an unknown force of over 1,000 dervishes. Unwittingly, the 320 men or so of the 21st had been led into an ambush and were forced to engage with over 2,000 warriors. The 2 forces met in a collision that Churchill describes as prodigious. Those cavalrymen that fell from their horses were cut to pieces, with slashes from razor-sharp dervish swords or speared to death. Heavily mauled, the Lancers somehow managed to conduct an orderly retreat. The whole action was quick and brutal. Churchill guessed the charge and hand-to-hand fighting only lasted around 2 minutes. Kitchener then advanced his main force. A final desperate Mahdist charge was then thwarted by concentrated rifle fire and artillery support from the gunboats. The Mahdists then retreated towards Khartoum. The battle resulted in heavy casualties for the Mahdists, with around 9,700 killed, 3,000 wounded and 5,000 captured. British and Egyptian forces suffered around 47 dead and 382 wounded. This was due to the huge difference in technology. Success here led to the eventual capture of Khartoum and the restoration of Anglo-Egyptian rule over the Sudan. The Mahdist leader, the Khalifa, also met his end, shot to death by Egyptian troops while sat on a prayer rug. The medal itself is made of silver. The obverse is a Jubilee bust of Queen Victoria, and the reverse a seated figure of Victory holding palms and laurels with flags in the background and the word Sudan below her. Unusually, no clasps were issued. The ribbon is half yellow and half black, divided by a thin crimson stripe. Medals awarded to the 21st Lancers, who Churchill charged with, are particularly sought after. Number 3. Churchill, like other British troops, was also awarded the Khedive's Sudan Medal. The obverse is an Arabic inscription translated as Abbas Hilm II and the Islamic date 1314 or 1897. and the reverse an oval shield surrounded by flags and a trophy of arms. 15 clasps were awarded for this medal. The medal is silver or bronze and the ribbon is yellow with a broad central blue stripe. And finally, number 4, the Queen's South Africa Medal. After losing an election for a parliamentary seat in the UK, Churchill participated in the campaign as a correspondent for the Morning Post. He witnessed several engagements giving him reportedly an entitlement to 6 clasps: Diamond Hill, Johannesburg, Relief of Ladysmith, Orange Free State, Tagula Heights and Cape Colony. This is out of a total of 26 clasps awarded for the medal. Churchill was captured by Boer forces on the 15th of November 1899. He was on an armoured train near Estcourt in Natal, South Africa, when it was ambushed by Boer commandos. Churchill and a few others were taken prisoner and subsequently held in a prisoner of war camp until he escaped into modern-day Mozambique. The medal itself, the Queen's South Africa Medal, 250,000 Queen's South Africa medals were made. Units awarded came from across the Empire, including India, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Some of the more rare clasps include Defence and Relief of Ladysmith and the Defence and Relief of Mafeking, amongst others. The obverse is a Jubilee bust of Queen Victoria and the reverse Britannia, holding the flag and laurel crown, looking over a large group of colonial forces and warships. The words South Africa are also on the medal. The ribbon is red with 2 narrow blue stripes and a broad central orange stripe. Therefore, in conclusion for the young Winston Churchill's campaign medals, we have the IGS 95, or India General Service 95, the Queen's Sudan Medal, the Khedive's Medal, and finally, the Queen's South Africa Medal. Churchill would go on to be awarded medals in World War I and also medals in World War II. The book I used for research explaining the first segment, explaining life during the British Raj in India when Churchill was serving there, was my own book, Clasps of Courage, The Gripping Story of the India General Service Medal 1854. If you want to learn more about the Raj during the 19th century and campaigns and battles associated with the India General Service Medal, coupled with medal collecting basics, it's definitely worth a read. The Amazon link is in the channel's main description. If anyone wants to learn more about battles on the northwest frontier or the Pathan tribal people, I suggest these 2 videos here. Umbela, the Hamburger Hill of the British Raj, and also the top 3 tribal groups most feared by the British. I hope you found some value from this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.